Hey y'all, this is Craig Havighurst, and once again we've brought the string to our WMOT Riverside Revival studio for a conversation that could not be more exciting or more timely. The SteelDrivers are a band celebrating 20 years in the business, making a very unique form of bluegrass music. It's absolutely been so exciting to watch them over the years, and they are here now. The new record called Outrun that is on one of America's historic record labels, Sun Records, and we'll get into the story of what Sun's doing these days and how you guys hooked up. But from the SteelDrivers, please make welcome Mike Fleming and Tammy Rogers.
Hey.
Thanks, Craig. It's great to be here, as always.
Yes. Nice to see you. I have followed this story up close for a long time. I remember interviewing you guys right when the first Rounder record was coming out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What marks 20 years for you guys? Is there a birthday, or is it a kind of a vague blur of time that was in 2005?
No, I don't think it was vague at all. Mm-hmm. I mean, I very clearly remember the first time we got together in August of 2005 at Mike Henderson's house.
Okay.
Yeah. So that, to me, that is the defining moment, kind of the big bang of the band, if you will. So, right. Yeah, I mean, we didn't know at that time when he put out those calls that it would become, what it did, because it was a very organic thing, the way he made the phone calls. As we like to say, it was all his fault. Mm-hmm. And now we definitely call him the architect of the band, because he called us all individually, and we all showed up.
I know. Some of us knew each other, and some of us didn't. None of us knew Chris.
Yeah, none of us knew everybody.
Yeah,
right.
I hadn't met
but Mike
Fleming.
Yeah.
Let's talk about who's in the band. Richard Bailey on banjo. He's been there. He's a lifer.
He's an original.
He's a lifer.
Otherwise, Brent Truitt, who picked up the mandolin when Mike Henderson stepped aside to do about everything else in the music business because he was in such demand. We'll bring that up.
That was 2012. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Brent's been in since 2012.
And for the last few years, Matt Dame has been on guitar and lead vocals.
Lead vocals.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so you're a five-piece band. Have always been a five-piece band. Mm-hmm. And what about celebrating 20 years? Anything that you were doing different this year to mark this occasion?
We're touring like crazy. And
as you do.
As well, in recent years, we've been a little more civilized about it. You know, last year was not a super... we're not 20 anymore. We're not even 30, Craig. And as
40.
much as it pains us to admit, so,
What are you? Oh, no.
Yeah. 49!
There you go.
No, I can't even claim that anymore, I'm afraid. But it has to make sense for us to really want to go out and tour like we used to. But this year it does.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of residencies, but multiple nights.
Yes.
Like we're going to be down at the Cave for 3 nights coming
the
up.
Caverns.
Yep. And
I did notice
those are nice.
that. A lot of theaters around the country. You guys can play 2 and 3 nights. That's the kind of crowd you've built over 20 years.
Yes.
Another part of the journey that I want to get at. Do you guys think about any key factors that have made that kind of longevity possible? It's really an impressive. And you guys have been, besides from the pandemic, y'all have never been off the road. There's never been a comeback moment. You guys have been a steady project, releasing records every few years on cycle and adding to the repertoire. But what do you think? What do you think is behind you guys still being passionate about the SteelDrivers as a project?
Oh, that is really easy. It's the music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's the fact that we have continued to play the music that we love and find those songs that mean something to us and put out records that that are weighty. We've never been the type band to put out a record every year. Not that there's anything wrong with that. There's a certain cycle of, recording, touring. But, we just always wanted to make sure that we put out the songs that we really, really believed in. And sometimes that just takes a little bit of time. And
I'll take that too. Sure, also, that around 2016 or 17, after Muscle Shoals recording, we lost one of our lead singers, Gary Nichols, and we were kind of regrouping again, and we found Adam Wakefield to sing,
he stepped in for a few
sub for
months.
us, and I was worried about what's going to happen now, and we just kind of found out. We were up in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and Adam can deliver that kind of gospel shout and stuff, but the people there really, as long as we played these songs,
It was
and
all
played the
song-driven,
songs they loved and delivered them in a good fashion, they were fine.
Yeah.
They were fine. And it's been that way, I feel, ever since. But they like song after song after every album, too.
It's the catalog.
Yeah, it's a catalog.
It's
And to be clear, it is an overwhelmingly original catalog. These are songs written by you guys in the band.
all original. Yeah.
And that was a commitment you made early on to distinguish
From
the
the very
SteelDrivers, to not be part of a band that's dipping into a little cabin home on the hill.
Sure.
Right.
And not there's anything wrong with that.
No,
but,
exactly.
But it is.
That's right.
But it does give you your own lane.
Yeah.
I used that phrase earlier, describing you guys really kind of in its own lane from the world of the IBMA, and I think you guys need more recognition over there in that IBMA
Thank
side
you.
of things. I'll be working on that. But
Yeah.
Tammy, you said in the new bio that you made a commitment to making original music early on, and now you're reaping the rewards. What do you mean by that?
Absolutely. Well, it's hard in the beginning to go out and play a whole set of all original material when you're trying to win fans and create, momentum. And so it's. I don't want to say it's easy because I certainly am not making light or putting anyone down that does put in more popular music or covers by other bands, because that's certainly a different road to take. But we would go into some festivals and play all original material, and people would just look at us. And so sometimes it was tempting. It's like, dadgum, let's just go up there and play Foggy Mountain Breakdown or something,
Right.
But
You could get them whooping or whooping
Right,
and hollering,
exactly.
but
Yeah.
at what cost? Yeah, good point.
But we just never did. I mean, I think maybe very early on, Chris would ever now and again sing "Gonna Sleep with One Eye Open,"
Yeah.
There you go.
and
That was the
there
first
might be
one.
some video of that floating around. But beyond that,
Yeah,
I mean, we just stuck to our guns and really, really believed in what we were doing and the strength of the material. And and I also kind of jokingly, but I believe it. It's like, if you want to hear Little Cabin Home on the Hill, nobody's done that better than the original, or maybe Bluegrass Album Band.
Yeah.
Go listen to those recordings. They're fantastic.
Yeah.
I love those. But
Well, you were started by two songwriters.
absolutely.
And
It's a
I
songwriter
just
band.
sitting here thinking how, for a certain kind of listener who is to this interview, this conversation, who will be getting to know you, maybe have heard of you, but everyone's heard of Chris Stapleton, and to think
They have now.
this was the band, this was the band that survived the departure of Chris Stapleton, that got going with that voice,
Yeah.
that got going, and then his career blows up, and it just becomes almost inevitable that there's
Yeah.
there's a amicable parting of the ways, and you guys figured out a way to keep the songs and the energy and the sound and dynamic going through, whatever trials and tribulations. and a lot of
it's
good
pretty
times, too.
crazy. Yeah.
And it's always, it just started out, the sound was, the components that were there. I mean, Chris was not going to be a high lonesome singer.
Yeah.
He's a blues
Southern rock voice, really,
He didn't never
probably
play
more.
bluegrass.
Yeah.
Never played bluegrass guitar.
Yeah. Some of your
that
other
was
lead
fine.
singers have never played bluegrass
Oh,
either.
most of
Yeah.
them had.
It's a
None
kind
of them.
None of them. and that's fine.
job
It's-
prerequisite.
I know,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then Henderson brought a lot of the blues into it because of the way he played the mandolin, and then later he played the National on Reckless.
slide.
And so it's always had that kind of a bluesy feel to it with the blues kind of singer, and then the other three of us doing what we do on our instruments and to whatever the song needs.
All right.
And
Well, since we're on the subject, let's just talk about how Mike Henderson and Chris Stapleton figure out that they need some folks to flesh out this body of work back in 2004 and 5. Take us there. When did you get the call? And like you said, you didn't all know each other, but you kind of knew some, and it was just comfortable, like one of those Nashville things. Like, sure, we'll go play these songs.
Yeah.
And you'd not heard these songs before.
Right.
Well, going into it, at least my recollection from the phone call that I got, because Henderson and I had worked together in the mid-'90s through the early 2000s with Dead Reckoning.
The Dead Reckoning label. Yeah, another important part of this story that Mike Henderson was a founder.
Yes.
And you were an original member of the Dead Reckoning crowd.
We like to say we were Americana before Americana was cool. But yeah, that's how we had known each other. And so when he called me up that summer of 2005, it was just kind of a very casual, hey, Tammy, what have you been up to? It's like, oh, not much. I was actually out with Reba McEntire that summer.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, feel like playing a little bluegrass? He knew from having worked with me in the 90s that I grew up playing bluegrass. But at that point, it had been about 15 years since I had really played any serious bluegrass. Just, maybe something in the studio if somebody had a bluegrass inspired or an acoustic track, but nothing serious, in my opinion. So, I kind of thought, well, that sounds kind of interesting. Why not? And I had a little girl at the time. She's almost 24 now. She was about 4 then. And so I talked to my husband, Jeff, and said, hey, Henderson called. Do you mind if I go? It was on a Sunday night.
Sunday nights.
It's when he liked to, to jam or rehearse. So I said, do you okay to watch Delana Sunday night? Henderson asked me to come up. And he goes, yeah, go ahead, So we roll up there, and I think he told me, I knew Richard Bailey from both of us running around playing bluegrass when we were teenagers. He likes to joke that he knew me before I could drive a car, and it's not a joke, it's true. I think we met when I was 14 or 15.
Right.
But I didn't know Fleming, and I'd heard Chris's name around town, but I hadn't met him yet, and I certainly hadn't heard him sing. So that was my phone call. And at the time, I didn't know that Mike and Chris had been writing for 3 or 4 years and had this deep catalog already of songs. So I don't know what your phone call was like.
Well, he came over to the house, and he said, I need you to play bass in a bluegrass band. You want to do that? And I thought, well, okay, sounds good. And sing baritone. All right, I think I can do that. I'm not sure. And but I'd known Mike since college. We went to Mizzou, and then later moved into a house and formed a bluegrass band and played until about 1981. And then he went in a blues direction, and I went to hillbilly direction. And
I want people to really understand the depth of Mike Henderson's place in the city and his role. By this point, he's already been hosting the blues night at the Bluebird Cafe with his Blue Bloods band since 80-something?
I think so.
Yeah, like 86.
Maybe 80.
It was in the...
And
so, and that went on for years. Later on, we will get to Mike Henderson's sad demise, which was quite recent. Yeah. But he was just a giant, and in more later years of his life, he toured the world with Mark Knopfler.
Yes.
And, major league musician who a lot of folks outside of Nashville have not associated with country. They don't quite know what the name means. But Henderson is, a god for a lot of us.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
and, and I think also probably your feeling as well as mine, it's like, well, chances are anything that he's going to be doing is going to be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was my, when he called me, it was because I hadn't seen him in 4 or 5 years by that point, but I was like, okay, I'm interested in this. So let's go see what this is all about.
And then sitting around that first night in a circle, and then I think we did learn Sleep with One Eye Open, but then they started trotting out these other songs, Dark Whiskey, and then
Can't Be Good, Be Gone.
Yeah.
I remember that thinking, how have I missed this old traditional song?
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up on this stuff. I mean, I could not believe that they were pulling out these songs that were so authentic. That's what hooked me. Because to be honest, even if Henderson had been involved, if it really was just a rehashing. I was at a point in my life and career that I'd already played so much original music, had a great road gig, paying a boatload of money. Mm-hmm. It's like, if it's not musically interesting to me, I wouldn't have done it.
Right.
But the fact that this catalog of songs was so amazing, and then, of course, you put Stapleton's voice in that mix, and Richard Bailey.
You're the other voice in that harmony blend. Mm-hmm. You're the other big factor.
I would have never, if you had played me his voice before I walked in that night and said, you're going to sing harmony with this guy, and it's going to be magic, I would have said, I'm not going to sound good with that voice.
Wow.
I'm not going to be able to blend with that. But it was so, I didn't even think about it. I just started singing. Mm-hmm. And there was just something, it's like my voice isn't raspy at all. Mm-hmm. It's not got that thing, but it's almost like it put the top end and the cut on the top of his full raspy thing. Yeah. And then you slide in Mike's harmony right in there, and that 3-part powerful harmony became such a big, it became the sound.
Yeah, we were always singing, and it seemed like Chris he can sing really high.
He can sing
People
as high.
Don't think he's a tenor.
No,
but he can hit
is.
a high B or
something.
C?
I mean, as high as I can sing too, or higher. It's crazy.
All right. And so our harmonies were just, and they still are. We push them up pretty high.
As high as I can sing.
And then it's just really. People were almost to the point of screaming on some notes, and I think that's part of the intensity of the vocals,
the vocal thing.
Where did you roll this out in public for the first time? Do you remember the first show or early on?
Was it the
Browns or VFW?
I think the VFW hall
down in Franklin.
In Franklin. That's where we practiced.
Yeah, well, because again, Henderson was so smart, and he'd been around the business so long, that he knew if we booked a gig at the Station Inn or someplace in town, that people would come, just knowing all of the people that were involved.
Right.
And he very much wanted us, when we did, because once we started playing and we were all into this, and he would set a microphone down and we would record our rehearsals, and those tapes are probably still floating around somewhere. And people that heard him were just like, wow, just, stunned. So he knew that we needed to be really ready and play some kind of warm-up gigs, woodshed gigs we called them.
Sharpen our tack.
Before we kind of hit Nashville. And even though it was 20 miles outside of town in Franklin, once Ron Kimbrough got his space down there, Kimbrough's, we played down there usually a couple times a month.
Yeah, great.
For tips.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We thought we were living high when we were making $40 each a night, playing for tips.
Yeah, we did a lot of that. 2006.
Yeah.
We were woodshed.
2005, 2006.
Even though as good as you guys are, you felt like if we can just dial it in, there's a difference between there and exactly where we want it to be. Oh, that's great.
And at that point, Chris, I don't know, he'd maybe played in some bands a little bit in college, but he hadn't played
more of a songwriter
that much out, and we were using the large diaphragm microphone, so we were working on, okay, how do we do this thing on stage? And it was all of it. It wasn't just the music, it was the choreography, of being on stage.
Right.
So it's
How did you get connected with Rounder Records? We're going to talk about you being hooked up with a historic label now.
Yes.
That's a historic label then. I mean, Rounder had already established itself as one of the icons of bluegrass music and American folk and roots. So what happened?
Well, that is partially Richard's fault because he was good friends with Blaine Sprouse, the iconic fiddle player that lived here in the 70s and 80s and played on so many records, just an amazing player. He was still in town then, and he was good friends with Ken Irwin. And I think it was the very first IBMA when they were still in Nashville. We went and played some showcases, and Blaine had been coming down to Kimbrough's to hear us, and he said, Ken, you need to go check these guys out.
Great.
You really need to go check them out. And he did, and basically, just off the strength of that one showcase, he was like, we want to do this. And again, Henderson being so smart, he realized the opportunity there, that if we came out of the box with a record on Rounder Records, in the bluegrass world, Americana world, that carries so much weight that it would immediately put us in a place to get a lot of attention.
Right.
Yep.
And people would, out of the box, take us seriously.
Yep. Y'all were so integral to the origins of our Music City Roots show and the show we did in Chattanooga.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
wherever you went,
Yeah.
the crowds would come. They weren't, your crowds then and now were not the same exact people that are at Del Fest with
No.
with their camping chairs or going to the traditional bluegrass festivals. You guys pulled in people from the Southern rock contingents and metal and blues. And why did you make
crazy.
some observations about your audience? Because I mean, it's pretty different than Reba's crowd as well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
your success has been due to being able to kind of unify a bunch of disparate fan bases, I think.
That's a great way of putting it. Yes, and also the age group.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll play a place like the Ramcat in North Carolina, and it's predominantly kids. I call kids. They're in their 20s probably.
Great.
Standing crowd, big standing
crowd. And then we'll go to a theater, and there may be an older crowd. But yeah, I think from like 25 to 55, we have a huge fan base, and that's pretty great.
Yeah,
That's pretty lucky for us. And we've had kids, our people come up my age, and they go, well, my kid told me about y'all.
Oh, great. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Because
been
they're
in it.
listening to Spotify and Pandora,
Yeah.
but
Yep.
some older folks just don't listen to those.
It occurs to me there's a similar thing going on demographically and with the success of reaching people that bluegrass often doesn't reach with Billy Strings.
Oh, for
Oh,
sure.
sure.
And
Yeah.
I've not
Yes.
I'll have to think about that more, but it's kind of important because I think there's a sort of kind of something to be learned about how bluegrass positions itself and where that edge is brought in to help kind of stimulate that conversation that's so
Yeah.
important now.
Yeah.
That first record, you mentioned the song "Drinking Dark Whiskey." Blue Side of the Mountain may have been one of on that record, but I mean early.
It
It's
was
one of
the
your,
lead-off
one of
track.
Your, one of
Yeah.
your signature songs. Where Rainbows Never Die is one the audiences always want to hear. I don't know how early that, but my point is
Second
that
record, yeah.
you're, like you said, Henderson and Stapleton had this catalog, and you kind of rolled these songs out, and they're still with you today. The audience
Still.
wants to hear those.
Still, and it's incredibly. Every time I walk out on stage, it's just an amazing feeling to have them singing back. And now, it's at the point where we just played Del Fest, as a matter of fact, last Sunday. And they're standing there and they're singing along to every song, old and new.
Right.
And, they're screaming out at titles, and
Yeah.
it's amazing and satisfying all at the same
It is.
time.
Yeah.
To be part of that.
What's it been like rolling out new songs to your crowd? Is it a little approach you take? What's the experience been? And do you remember anyone that worked from the very beginning? And
Yes.
just like what's been?
I have a really sweet story. Before we recorded Bad For You, which we were talking before the show about a little bit, I had written this song with Tom Utes called I Choose You, which is, I always joke that it's our only happy song because it's not typical SteelDriver fare. Nobody gets killed. There's no drinking in the song. Nobody's in prison.
Right.
So, I mean, it's really about finding your long-term partner. And so I was doubtful that the guys would even go for it, but they did. I kind of pitched it to them like, oh, this is kind of like Gentle on My Mind, this kind of feel. And they went for it. And I remember distinctly the first time we played it live, long before we went in the studio, and we were playing a venue where the audience was standing and they were very close, so I could clearly see people right there in front of us.
Yeah.
And we started, and it starts with the chorus, and it's very simple. I choose you every day in 100 different ways. Make the choice to stay. I could hit the open road, run my life away, but I choose you every day. And I saw this couple, and they were kind of standing there at the beginning of the song, and by the end of the song, they were standing there with their arms around each other, and they were singing the chorus. Mm-hmm. And I thought, we've got something here. And then even better, after the show was over, and I don't know that this has ever happened, the monitor guy that night came up and goes, do you have that song recorded? I love that song.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, a crew guy's asking for a song? This is
great.
incredible. So that's one of the more modern pieces that has become an absolute staple in our set.
along.
And
Yeah.
as soon as we start it, you can just, they're right there on that first chorus. It's amazing.
Well, I once called you, I think the phrase was dark energy goth grass.
I love that.
So I think that everybody was just like, we're making you wait for that sweet song. And when
Yeah.
it hits, it's like,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, I joke about it a lot. You know, I'll say, okay, this is the one that the ladies love. Guys, you can go get another drink or what, you know. But the guys are standing there singing along to it, too. So it's really sweet.
Marvelous. Adele covered If It Hadn't Been for Love. That's a moment because she was as big as anything when that happened.
Oh, yeah.
Massive.
And how far back did that song go in the repertoire?
From the beginning.
First
Yeah.
album?
Yeah.
Pretty
First
sure it
record.
was. And then what happened? How'd you find out and what came of it?
I think we found out because she started doing it live, and we started seeing all these YouTube clips, and people were then hitting our website, and she would always do this great introduction and totally give us props about the song.
Yeah.
Good. Neat.
And then
Because they're a bluegrass
we found
swagger
out
band.
that
That's what she called us.
the bus driver on
Yeah.
our American tour was playing
Had a copy of our first CD.
was playing it, and she heard the song, and it was like, now how serendipitous is that? You know, just
You can't plan that
you
stuff.
can't plan that stuff, and then there it is, and she's doing it on a live recording, and
At Albert Hall.
yeah, at Albert Hall, and it's funny, and she's funny anyway,
Yeah.
because she's
Yeah.
got a lot of blue words at times,
Oh, yeah.
you know. But
Yeah.
there's a few guys I'd like to, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and she does a good version.
Fantastic.
Yeah. That's another sing along too.
Yeah, these days
we
it's a
just
huge
turn the crowd
sing-along, yeah.
loose and prompt them, and they just go.
Fun.
You know,
Fun.
just-
Yeah.
Had to manage personnel changes over the years. So the big one being Mike Henderson and Chris Stapleton both get so much going on in their lives. Chris Stapleton is a giant country star. And walk us through that first, okay, we got to regroup in a big way here.
Yeah. Well, I think we were fortunate in that they didn't leave at the same time.
Okay.
So it was a little bit spread out. You know, Chris left first, and Henderson stayed in the band. So that transitioned to Gary Nichols, who is an amazing singer, songwriter, guitar player. That smoothed that out because it was only one person. And then, you know, a couple of years later, you know, I think in all honesty, Henderson just did not want to tour. I think that's really, really what it boiled down to. He, like you say, he was at a place in his life where he was super busy. He was producing records. He had his Monday night standing gig, you know, with the Bloods, writing, you know, incredible songs. And touring is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, touring is not easy. So I to me, that was the gist of it. He just did not want to be on the road as much as it takes to build a band, keep a band going, keep the momentum going.
Yeah.
So Brent had done some sub gigs back with us in 2009 when Henderson had to miss some travel things.
Okay.
So that kind of smoothed that transition.
Right. So Brent Truitt comes in and plays mandolin.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it's interesting because Brent, I've known him since early on in my time in Nashville, pretty low-key guy.
Yeah.
He's funny as can be, but he's kind of, he doesn't have that outgoing big personality that
Yeah.
Henderson has.
Yeah.
Was there an adjustment there to be made? Did that shift the center of gravity of the band? And
It did.
Who is the kind of front face on, energy?
Yeah. He and I were kind of, doing MC work and
Yeah.
things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Mike would, he would bear down when he was playing national and stuff.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, most of the time, he just wanted to chop the mandolin,
Okay.
and stuff. But then when he left, Tammy came up more and started MCing too, which was great because it takes two people to kind of do that.
Yeah, I agree.
Tammy's got the energy in the band right now, I think.
Some days.
They got to lean on each other.
Yeah.
But
Well,
Brent's he's like a mandolin slinger.
Oh, my gosh.
He's
he plays it like a telly.
yeah, and he
he bends
looks
strings
good
crazy,
on stage. So he came up. He had already had his whole thing. He'd been out with Dolly Parton and Dixie Chicks, and
That's right.
So he
I forgot
And
that.
it has
he knew how to be on stage and look
worked
good.
for 30 plus years in studios, recording and producing records for people. I mean, he's a Grammy Award winning engineer,
Yes.
But I think the secret to a lot of those transitions is we never asked anybody to copy anything.
Okay.
So,
Yep, right.
like, even when Gary came into the band, he just happened to have a raspy voice similar to Chris's, but he wasn't a copycat. He wasn't an impersonator.
Right.
I mean, to my ear, you can drop a needle on any of the records, and I can tell you who's singing lead. I hear them all very distinct.
Sure.
Right.
They just happen to fall in the same kind of bluesy category.
Yep.
But we never asked him to copy Chris's licks or copy Chris's interpretations.
Yes.
And the same thing with Brent. Brent plays mandolin way different from Hendo.
Right.
So when he came into the band, that shifted a lot of things musically. But I think it also then enlivened the instrumental portion because it was, for me and Richard, this is something new. After you've been playing
Yep.
the songs for a long time, to have a different spin on it can kind of spark new ideas from the existing members. And I think that's kind of been part of the story too, that everybody is allowed to be themselves
Yeah.
For sure.
and not feel like, I've got to learn this solo like Henderson did it note for note. I mean, we would never tell Brent to do that, ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to hear a bit about the Muscle Shoals album. It wins a Grammy for Best Bluegrass Album, so there's special chemistry going on there, and the place is special too.
yes.
What do you remember about that, and why you chose to go there?
Well, we'd done Hammer Down with Gary, so he gets kind of like on the map there.
Yeah.
And like I said, we think that's really good record.
It's a great record.
But it didn't get much notoriety. I don't know if it was because it was the first record after Chris or what. So we wanted to do a second one, and so we thought, okay, Ken Irwin would always kind of go, "What's the story?"
Yeah.
I love
You
that.
know,
I learned so
And
much from Ken.
I did too, and go, okay, let's go to Muscle Shoals. That'll be it's Gary's hometown, and let's go
Right.
down.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's
Yeah.
go down to Muscle Shoals.
and we really kind of
It's
put it
historic.
on him. It's like,
Yeah,
let's you do you. You step
Yeah.
out and cut loose. And so we went down there, and it was great fun. We worked in a great studio,
Nut House.
Nut House, which is an awesome studio name, especially for us. But it felt really cohesive as well. To be down there. Our manager at the time, Jules Wortman, she was there with us and lined us up with
Robert.
trying to remember his last name, to do all the photography. We did all the photography down there, down in the swamps, in those cypress trees. It was beautiful. It just felt like, and again, I remember having a conversation up at Thomas Point Beach with Ken Irwin, when you said, he asked, what's the story? You know, he said, you don't want to keep reproducing the same record over and over again.
Yeah.
You don't want to keep using the same formula. Okay, here's your gospel song, here's your slow song, here's your up-tempo. Yeah. And I really took that to heart, and ever since then, that's in my mind when we're going to do a record. Okay, what's going to make this one different?
Right.
What's going to set it apart? You know, what is it? A couple different grooves that we haven't, explored, or subject matter.
Yep.
Whatever it is, we just have to keep pushing that and making it a journey.
Right. Well, I'm glad it was such a memorable experience. I would imagine it would be.
Yeah.
Because there's often artists in our field do that Muscle Shoals pilgrimage, and it never gets old, either for the listener, and people get very refreshed there.
And it felt very authentic, because again, it's where Gary was born and raised, and he still lives there.
I think there was some, you wrote some songs, and Gary wrote, and I think some of Gary's were really personal songs too, and it was a record that was not your typical bluegrass record.
Yeah,
that's
we got Jason Isbell in to co-produce on a couple tracks, and then he sat in on guitar on one or two. So so that was fun. And Gary and Jason go way back, teenage years, little guitar slingers down there in the Shoals running around. In Battle of the Bands and stuff.
I'm glad you did secure that Grammy. It's the kind of thing
we
that helps.
Too.
Yeah, we were three-time losers up to then.
Yeah.
You've been nominated multiple times.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah.
So then let's roar here. You do a gospel record with your current singer, Matt Dame.
Yes.
And that was, as you described to me before, a little bit of an opportunity that came up. You thought, let's try that. And it has covers on it, classic gospel tunes.
Yeah.
And does it help in any way slingshot you into making Outrun?
Absolutely.
Something about, you're in church pews on the cover of that one, and here you are,
looking
getaway car.
Well, no, I've been writing, gospel music, and a lot of it kind of uneasy gospel music for a long, long, long time. And it occurred to me a number of years ago that you don't have to necessarily use, kind of classic gospel lingo to still write very spiritual music.
Interesting, right?
And by that, I mean, you don't have to use the word heaven or glory or, God, Jesus, those terms, where rainbows never die. Arguably, our most requested song. And I will argue with you that it's a gospel song.
Yeah.
Right.
It is a very spiritual song. Yeah. It's talking about making that journey. It's about crossing the river. It's getting to the other side. Yeah. So that message is inherent in that lyric. So when I was just kind of brainstorming with our booking agent one day, and he kind of said, because Alabama is another band not known for their gospel music. He said, Alabama did a record with Gaither, and it was their biggest selling record in the past 20 years or whatever. And I was like, what? And I said, I would love to do a gospel record. I've got this whole back catalog of songs that we've never done. And
Gaither is a massive company that has huge resources and a lot of reach and an audience and a marketing operation.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
So Brandon had the relationship. He put in a call, and they were like, we would love to put out a SteelDrivers. So it was such a left turn, but I thought that was such a great thing to do. Why not? People
What's
are
the story?
never going to expect that and the story. So I had enough songs that we could have done a complete record of all original SteelDriver gospel music. And my whole intent was I wanted it to be so that if you listen to the songs and don't pay attention to the lyric, you wouldn't know that it was a gospel record. You would think it was just SteelDrivers record.
Right.
So musically, that's the pitch, but then the lyrics are spiritual. So we had a conversation with Gaither, and in order for that deal to work, they they requested that we do. That's their formula
Yeah.
to have
Handful
our
of
original and a handful of
the greatest
classics.
40 of all time. You know,
Yeah.
pick out 5 or whatever it
Yeah.
was, something like that.
5 or 6.
And I thought we did a good job on
Yeah.
those too. You know.
Yeah, we did, and they sound like SteelDrivers songs too now.
Yeah.
But that was our little concession. Those are the only things we've ever recorded. Not
It was uncanny that that's about the time that Mike Henderson passed away.
Yes.
And Nashville lost this person, as I described before, that, immense respect and personal affection. He knew everybody in the coolest way. And we did a talk just after that record and after your, taking it all in. And can you tell the story about learning about Henderson's death? It was fascinating. You were about to go on stage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get the call, and we were out in Park City, Utah. And it was so out of the blue. I still can't get over it.
Yeah.
You know,
There wasn't warning, right?
Yeah.
no, and he was such a big, strong man that I just knew he was going to live to be 95. I mean, his dad lived to be, 90, 91?
Yeah.
I know we all thought we had another 20 years with him. So to get that call was staggering.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah,
It
it
was
was.
tough.
It was just it was a rough night.
And you
was-
mentioned Rainbows Never Die. Everybody wanted to
we
hear that
couldn't
song.
do
We
it.
couldn't do it the first night.
You
we couldn't do
you
it.
had to tell
Yeah.
the audience what
Yeah.
happened and
Yeah.
share it with
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, we just couldn't do it. And then
Tammy and I couldn't do it for sure. There's no way.
but now, now we can, and he's so present in so many songs that it's joyful
Yeah.
to be able to keep that alive. And as long as Steel Driver music is played, he will be.
Yeah.
Because he is so a part of so many songs, and that's why we added 2 on the new record.
Yep.
Yeah.
By then he had passed, and the timing of this record was lining up with this 20th anniversary tour, which, in my opinion, is a celebration of everybody, all the different members. And when we're in a venue that we can do it, we've got this amazing slideshow
Oh, yeah?
that we want to.
Oh, cool.
We tried it out last year at the Ryman. Was about a 15-minute, and we've collected photos from, all the different bands. I mean, there's plenty of funny ones with Stapleton in there, and
Yeah.
Hendo and Gary, and just everybody that's been in the band. And it's for us, it's a great look back.
Yeah.
How does it work? You play this longer slideshow, but you're like playing live music along with it?
No,
Or how
we
does
play
it
it
go?
as people are coming in.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, like when they're playing the music, for people
Yeah,
to come
okay,
in and
right.
get
People,
seated.
oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
like a sweet
Evoking
thing.
the
Yeah.
history and
Yeah,
oh,
and
beautiful.
then I
And
think
if
at
it
the
works,
end,
yeah, at the end, then we just come out and
Yeah.
play.
yeah. So I mean, it just felt like just a little touch to have something fun for people to look at when they're sitting there waiting for us to come on. And then also if they came in late, I think we played it at the end too, so they could sit and watch it, if they wanted to see it as they go out. So I'm hoping that we can do that at the theaters this year. We certainly can't do it at festivals. We're playing a bunch of those too, but yeah.
Cool. Nice. All right. So the Gaither operation, in its own funny way, leads into this relationship with Sun Records.
Yes.
Because there's a story I did a couple months ago. Sun had been a brand out of Nashville, owned by a family, Shelby Singleton's family. And it was more of a licensing company, and they would put music from Jerry Lee Lewis and Johnny Cash in movies and put out packages of reissues and things, but it wasn't really a lively active
Right.
label. And they made the decision to make it a lively active label. So
Yes.
then how does it come into your life?
We were told that Gaither bought them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was,
So-
we didn't know that all that was going on.
Right. So the point man, Paul.
Paul Sizlove.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sizemore. Is it?
Sizlove.
Sizlove, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He contacted Brandon probably, but he was the point man for the Gaither record.
Yeah.
And he again reached out
out of the blue and said,
And
hey,
was
we'd
like-
love for them to do a secular record. And we're like,
I'm
what?
like, okay,
Yeah.
what on? Son. It's like, what? So we went out there, I remember, and they did a presentation like I'd never seen before
Very
about
professional.
what they were going to do. That they had
And
a
our
lot of
analytics.
a lot of
and
30-somethings, that knew their socials, and I walked out.
We
going,
were trending.
how we were trending, and this
What?
and how we need to do this and that, and it's like, wow, I've
Yeah.
never seen anything like that from a record
Yeah.
label.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
It was
And-
amazing.
and
And-
was right here in town.
And they
too.
basically, as a modern deal, I don't think I'm saying anything that I probably shouldn't. If I am, you can edit me later.
Okay.
Okay.
It's a lease deal. So we're maintaining ownership of our masters.
Great. Yeah.
The gospel and this one, and we don't own any of the other records.
Yeah. Right.
So those were the old style record deals
Yeah.
with
Right.
Rounder and then Concord. So it feels really great to have that. That just seems to be more the modern style of record deal if you can maintain ownership of your master.
Yeah.
So
And you were
That was
given,
very important.
given carte blanche to just like go make this record and bring it to us, or
Yeah.
no, I wouldn't think they'd want to try to supervise it. You know what you're doing.
That's with the exception of the Gaither, where they wanted some songs.
Yeah.
But this one, right? not this
Every one we've done, and probably Mike's the one that set it up.
He
Said
is.
we will make the record, or we will
And hand
make-
it to
and
you,
we'll hand it to you,
finished.
but we need nobody to interfere with us.
Yep.
We're not turning in what songs we're recording, and
we're not doing demos.
we don't want somebody in there
Yeah,
trying to
picking a
produce
single.
us.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah.
or they can do it later.
Yeah,
We're
right.
like, whatever, we let them do that. I mean, we've certainly had our favorites, and I'm so thankful that Hendo really was adamant about that because, there were times when people were like, okay, we want to hear what you're thinking of recording. He's like, nope,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We don't work that way.
Yeah, great.
And they were like, what?
Yeah.
What? Like,
Well, how did you approach Outrun? When did the kind of conception of this title and this metaphor and this cover and the aesthetic of it? You made it at home in your home studio
Yeah.
because you got a quality
Yes.
home studio that you and your husband built.
Yep.
But tell me about just coming together and making this thing.
Well,
Well.
I'm always writing songs.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not the type of writer that decides, okay, we're going to do a record. Okay, I'm going to shut myself away for 2 months and write it. I continually am writing songs. But I hang on to them. I don't inundate the guys with them
Okay.
until we decide we're going to make a record. Because I also know enough about, most of my demos or little writers' demos sound pretty crappy. And that's probably the last thing they want to hear riding down the road. Hey, you want to hear the last song I wrote? Oh, God. So I just don't do that. I
Yeah.
just don't. But when the deal came up, I just started sending them songs. And we knew that we wanted, by that point, the idea came up, let's include some of Hendo's material.
Right.
Because we wanted that to be a part of it. So we,
Stuff you've been sitting on for years.
yeah, like Painted in Poison, we used to do that when he was in the band.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
we never cut it. He wrote it with Ronnie McCurry.
Oh, neat. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mike found a version of that, and I had always loved Prisoner's Tears, and I knew that Mike especially loved and was proud of that song as a writer.
Great.
So I felt like, and Matt's an incredible country singer as well as singing SteelDrivers material. He can flat out deliver a ballad. So I just had a feeling that he would slay that song.
Yeah.
And he did.
Yeah. He did.
Just
Classic country lone song.
Oh,
right
my
there.
God.
killed it.
And then I think we the Gaither record got us our feet wet. We were
Yeah.
wanting to do another record, but we lost Kelvin, and so now we're breaking in with Matt, and everybody's
another
breaking
singer.
in. There's a time. There's at least a
So
touring
you're a good bit younger.
touring
How old is
season.
Matt? Is he a?
He's 50 now.
I think
He's 50 now. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. He's more of a veteran. He's
Yeah.
not like
Yeah,
working
yeah.
for a while with a much
Yeah.
younger singer. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
No, he's amazing.
And so we knew it was time to do another one, and our booking agent Brandon was kind of got the Gaither thing, and he knew we wanted something else to get going, and I
And
felt
he also
then
knew we were already starting to talk about this 20th anniversary
Yeah.
coming up, that
Yeah.
we really wanted to celebrate that.
and we saw Matt's prowess in the studio. I mean, he can go in
Okay.
and sing a song 3 times, and
he's done.
And it's like there's everything you would want. He's that quick.
Great.
So it made recording easy.
Yeah.
And he interprets songs really well too, because that's what he's done as a demo singer for 10 years.
Yeah. Oh, I
know?
see. Really? Okay.
Yeah.
He's been singing a ton in town.
10 in town.
Yeah.
And now he's in most shows doing the same thing. But
Yeah.
so he knows how to interpret a song, or, how about this or that. And
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just easy to do. We saw it when we did the Gaither. So now we go, okay, we can knock this out.
Yeah.
Just got to get the songs. And
Right.
Tammy sent us a boatload.
A bunch. and to me, that's how it works, because then they are invested,
Yeah.
because they're basically choosing. I might say, let's really try this one. I really want to try this one. But I try not to push too hard, because I want them to feel as invested as I am. Just because maybe they didn't co-write it with me, they're helping on the arrangements. They're coming up with parts. They're
Helping to
creatively
produce it.
part of it. Yeah. So that's kind of how we did that. And then,
What about these first 2 songs, Outrun and The River Knows?
yeah,
They're dark,
those.
And, the body count starts real quick
Oh,
on this
yeah.
record. You write these or what?
I did, yeah. And those were actually kind of late breaking
Oh, really?
developments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we didn't have a title yet. And I had just was kind of in that brain place of writing. And I ran into Leslie Satcher, who has been a longtime co-writer of mine. And the guys love her. They love
yeah.
what she brings as a co-writer.
Special writer.
And,
Yeah.
her soul and
gritty,
blues.
the
And,
way she sings and plays.
Oh, my
It's
gosh.
like, yeah.
so we hadn't written anything since before COVID. She was my co-writer on Bad For You.
Okay.
And a song on that record called Forgive. And Somewhere Down the Road on the gospel record, she and I wrote that. Hell on Wheels, all the way back to Hammer Down. So we go way back.
Yeah.
And I ran into her socially at a wedding, and I walked straight up to her and I was like, Leslie, the SteelDrivers are going into the studio next week, and we don't have a Leslie song. And she said, I'm open Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So we got together on that Tuesday, and I'm telling you, that girl, you sit in a room with her and you better hang on.
Yeah.
Because I got there and she already had started Outrun.
Yeah.
She goes, I've got this idea for a song, and it's called Outrun. I'm like, let's go. And man, we finished that thing, and I knew, it's like, this is so steel drivey. Yeah. This is the groove,
Right.
The story, everything about it.
Yeah.
And
Minor chords.
all of it, yes.
Yeah, it's just,
And man, it's got some little funky phrasing things that she's just so great at. We wrote another song that day that I really tried to get them to go for, and they wouldn't. See, so I can't make them. But they went for Outrun, and it was the last song on the last day that we recorded. And we actually, the others that we had for a week or two, we'd kind of gotten together and kind of fleshed out a little bit. But that one we worked up in the studio.
Right.
And I remember Mike was playing this bass line, and it was like, okay. And finally, when I said, Mike, go to full time on the chorus.
Yep.
And he kind of looked at me and he goes, okay. And when he did, it's like my brain exploded. It was like, yeah!
Go to Wailing.
Yeah, that's what it was. Then the whole track just...
It does.
lit
It opens the chorus
up.
up. Yeah.
And it was so good. Everybody got so excited about it. And when we started talking about a title and a lead-off song, I think we all were like, Outrun.
That's got to be it.
I mean, it just... And for us, somebody even brought up on an interview we did, it's kind of like you guys you've been out running some stuff here, all these years.
Yeah, that was
you
interesting.
Can philosophically look at it,
Yeah.
you're out running the clock now, it's 20 years, all this stuff. And it's like, that thought it went through my mind.
Yeah. There's a lot of people in that whole record that are outrunning things.
Yeah, a lot of characters.
Outrunning themselves and, the law, and just a variety of things.
Yeah.
The judgment.
Yes.
The judgment. Yeah, there it is.
Yes.
Yeah, there's some sorrowful folks on here. But
Yeah.
we expect nothing less. Guys, congratulations on 20 years and this terrific new record that puts a
thanks,
stamp on
Craig.
it. And big shows for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And I'm just so proud to know y'all. And thanks for a great sit down. Appreciate it.
Us too.
Always the
Thank
support, man. And, it was always fun to do the root shows and sit up
Yes.
there and chat with you during those.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
it's...
Thanks for all you're doing for this community.
Yeah.
Appreciate it very much.
Yeah.
This station and everything. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, I don't know when to promise the next string on video, but it was certainly worth the time. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Yay.
Hey.
Good.